Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I'm Greg. Welcome to the Daily Bible Wrap Up. Going through the readings of the reading plan. The readings for today Psalm 126, Hebrews 12:14 through 29, and Ezekiel 28 through 29. Now, Psalm 126 is another short psalm. Quote from verse 5 Those who plant in tears will harvest with shouts of joy. Now, this is occurring on the return to Jerusalem after the exile, but I see another analogy here. We suffer in this life. It is really just the nature of this life. Now, often suffering brings us closer to God. I think that as I've gone through the Bible, I've learned that, and certainly going through life as well, too. I've learned that. But only if we let that happen, if we let the suffering be used as a teaching moment. I've talked before in my past about one particular time when I was at a job that was very depressing for me, and I would pray to God. It's like, please release me from this. But still, I realized it's like it was in His time, and it was that suffering period that helped me in a lot of ways, emotionally, spiritually, with my job. Not so much physically. I kind of let myself go a little bit there, but yeah, I've returned to it. What begins with tears then ends with joy. But again, if we let it, need to invite God in at those times. New Testament, we're in Hebrews 12, verse 14 is where we pick up the story. We are told to work at living in peace with everyone and work at living a holy life. For those who are not holy will not see the Lord. We are to look after each other. So, quote verse 15, none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Now, we have not come to a physical mountain to meet God like Moses, but rather in verse 24, it's explained, quote, you have come to Jesus, the one who mediates the new covenant between God and people, and to the sprinkled blood, which speaks of forgiveness instead of crying out for vengeance like the blood of Abel. We have grown as a people. As we have come to God himself, verse 23 is, then let me go to verse 28. Since we are receiving a kingdom that is unshakable, let us be thankful and please God by worshiping him with holy fear and awe. Holy fear and awe. God is not to be just taken as a convenience for us. Holy fear. I love that line, holy fear, because it implies a good respect as well as awe. But again, a lot of folks, they have not even tried to get to know the character of God. They build God in their own image. It's actually kind of the other way around. Old Testament, Ezekiel 28 continues with the message for Tyre, this one specifically for the king. I think verse 2 now lays out the specifics for the reason of the judgment against Tyre. Remember, I was kind of musing about that beforehand. I'm like, well, I'm not really sure what the issue is. I mean, I can assume, but I didn't want to assume. But here, quote verse 2, in your great pride you claim, I am God. I sit on a divine throne in the heart of the sea. But you are only a man and not a God, though you boast that you are a God. So the takeaway here seems to be that pride will lead to downfall. Maybe the more intense the pride, the bigger the fall. Now, this message is followed by a funeral song for Tyre, for the king of Tyre. I've noticed a little bit of a pattern. It's as if almost like adding funeral songs to the text, to the story, reinforces the message of judgment, kind of a statement of the finality of the situation. That was my takeaway. This also, so quote verse 23, then everyone will know that I am the Lord. And we see that a lot as well, too. The reason why this is happening is so that everyone will know that I am the Lord. And with all these messages of destruction, and it gets to be a little bit, I don't know if depressing is the right word, but certainly doesn't fill me with joy. Sometimes I begin to lose sight on what I think is the intent, to wake people up to the reality and the awesomeness of God so that we may understand, respect, and obey Him. Now, the chapter also ends with a note that there will be restoration, a message, quick message, restoration for Israel. So, keeping alive the idea that a lot of stuff is going to happen, but in the end, there will be restoration. Ezekiel 29 is a message for Egypt. This is specifically January 7th, 587 BC. The Lord will bring his army against Egypt because, quote, verse 7, when Israel leaned on you, you splintered and broke and stabbed her in the armpit. So remember, Israel should have turned to God when faced with uncertainty and danger, but they turned to Egypt. But Egypt should have stayed strong to protect Israel, if that was the agreement. Egyptians will be scattered, but will be brought back after 4 years, when Egypt's prosperity will be restored. But here's the but, this is important. Quote verse 14, Egypt will remain an unimportant minor kingdom. Then the reason why, quote verse 16, then Israel will no longer be tempted to trust in Egypt for help. So rather interesting here, God moving to remove the temptation of a nation. I find that interesting. Then a final message that the Lord will give the land of Egypt to the king of Babylon during this time, quote verse 20, because he was working for me when he destroyed Tyre. That's it for today. I found that this exercise, which is coming to a close, we still have about 40 odd days left, but I've learned a lot during this, and certainly it all centers around obedience. And my prayer for you today, a little bit different, is that you would discern what the Lord's plan for your life is, and then you would follow it in obedience. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. Take care.